So, architecture is something that exists in our world. Without architects, we'd all live in ugly houses that look the same or in caves. But architects also play a role in video games as well. Designing the buildings we see in games remains one of the hardest tasks out there, and to do it, typically you have to have some sort of understanding of architectural design. Yet, it's something I don't think gets enough attention. So with that said, I'm Elijah, and here are 10 amazing works of architecture in video games. Mind you, this is just architecture as in buildings and cities. This does not mean level design. That's another list. And since I have you here, you see that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers and you can help us with that goal. Thank y'all.
Number 10.
Destiny 2. Destiny 2's art direction at its core, it's high fantasy sci-fi, inspired by things such as Lord of the Rings. This is more evident in some places than others. You have more sci-fi inspired places like Old Russia, the EDZ, and the methane rigs on Titan. But let me introduce you to Space Rivendell and say hello to Space Mordor. To me, the moon and the Dreaming City are the highlight of Destiny's architecture, specifically the Red Keep and the ship on the moon, and pretty much anywhere in the Dreaming City. The Red Keep is certainly Mordor-esque in its design with its huge ominous towers surrounded by red spikes. Walking into this place feels foreboding with its stone halls that lead into dark caves and bottomless pits, whereas the ship feels like a giant stone monolith. You feel like you're walking into your own tomb, as strategically placed lights on the wall makes it look like little red eyes are watching you at all times. Its long black hallways are labyrinthian in design, making it feel like you're being suffocated, slowly. Though both the Red Keep and the ship are scary, their designs intrigues you enough to keep you wanting to explore. And then there's the Dreaming City, a place where amethyst crystals and stone live side by side to a dazzling effect. The buildings are tall and splendid. A lot of times you see these structures from afar and you have your breath taken away as you get closer. Unlike the Red Keep, the halls here feel warm and inviting, which more often than not leads you into a false sense of security. The designs of all three of these places feel Tolkien inspired, or should I say Jakson inspired? You can't really see what Tolkien writes, so for some of us, the Lord of the Rings movies are our point of reference, because what you imagine based off of Tolkien's descriptions might be completely different from what's in the movies.
Number 9.
Bioshock 1 and 2. Bioshock Infinite's architecture is beautiful in its own right. However, there's just something special about Rapture. The designers used a lot of Art Deco inspired designs for the city. For those of you who might have heard but don't know, Art Deco is an art design style that originates from France and was very popular in the 1920s up until World War II. It has a futuristic feeling because its design was based off of expectation. This was kind of the designers of the times imagining what the future of the machine age would bring. The end result is that Art Deco is a very ornate design style that uses materials such as aluminum and stucco, which gives it a sort of sheen, which is very apparent in Bioshock. They took the Art Deco style and put it underwater and toyed with it to exaggerate the futuristic aspects of its design. While you're walking down the hallway, it's hard not getting distracted. Even though most of the things you see are in shambles, you can still see the beauty that once was. But am I the only one that notices that Rapture is a lot like Oceania, the underwater city from Batman the Animated Series? They both have a similar Art Deco style. Both of them are dystopic cities. Both were for people who want to get away from the corrupt world on the surface, and even the creators of the cities look alike. I'm just saying.
Number 8.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Okay, where do we start with this one? The Breath of the Wild's landscape is beautiful, but so is its architecture. Even the rundown Temple of Time still holds a sort of melancholy beauty to it. But then you have the more pristine structures like Zora's Domain that looks to be inspired by both Plato's depiction of Atlantis with its multiple layers and bridges that go from the exterior that leads to the centermost interior of the structure, and also Venice, Italy, borrowing from its ornate designs. The first time you walk into this place, it's amazing. The ornate structures are dazzling. The glowing stones etched into the pillars and statue gives the environment a life of its own. Then you go from that to the Sheikah ruins, which are based off of Japanese jomon pots. The pots or vessels were made using simple tools on wet clay to create that distinctive design that you see on the front. These pots serve as the base design of all the shrines, towers, and divine beasts of the game. But then you go from that to Hyrule Castle. It's a big, beautiful castle, #BBC. The inside is beautiful and huge, from its various bedrooms to the dining hall to even the dungeon. The castle is beautiful and well designed, everything from the rundown structures to the parts that are still preserved. Half the fun in the game is finding new things to explore, whether it's the smallest house or inside the castle. It's all built amazingly.
Number 7.
Bloodborne. Bloodborne has a very strong and heated affair with Europe's pre-industrial Gothic revival, a time in which most architects became hipsters and wanted to recreate the grand structures of years past, even going as far as to make fake ruins. Old Yharnam's buildings aren't your typical pre-industrial Gothic buildings. These are pre-industrial Gothic buildings with a Lovecraftian twist. Yharnam buildings are goth in excess, so much so that you feel almost suffocated by the city as you walk through its cobblestone streets. The city takes a lot of inspiration from paintings that depicted the less than pleasant events that took place at the time, like the plague. The end result is that the city itself feels malevolent. Even if you took away the enemies, the place would still feel like it's out to get you. Because like I said, Yharnam is goth in excess. The city with its towering Baroque structures connecting and protruding off in various angles feel like an ever-growing plague that could consume you at any moment. Basically what I'm trying to say is that Yharnam is scary.
Number 6.
Final Fantasy 15. Words cannot express how much I love this game. Just a few bros taking their friend out for his bachelor party / road trip, then hijinks happen. And by hijinks, I mean an evil kingdom kills his father and tries to take over the world. But them buildings though. Final Fantasy has always had a fantastical design, melding sci-fi and fantasy. Its architecture is no different. The city of Insomnia, for instance, is based off of Shinjuku, Tokyo. No big deal there. However, when you start paying attention to the smaller details, that's when things get crazy. Some buildings are almost identical to ones you would find in Shinjuku, while others, like the more stylized castles, are smorgasbord with design, combining Gothic architecture from Spain, a bit of Art Deco with a little bit of modern architecture thrown in there. It's kind of a dangerous thing to do because you run the risk, if it's not done right, of your design looking far too busy. But luckily, they do it right. Then there's Alticia, which is just Final Fantasy Venice. The game and Venice are pretty identical. They just exaggerated Venice's features and designs in certain places. This had everything Venice has, but it's more grandiose and extravagant. It's a beautiful city to just kind of wander around. I lingered here a lot longer than I had to because I just thought this place was so beautiful.
Number 5.
Detroit Become Human. Quantic Dream set out to make the Detroit of tomorrow, a place where the factories that were once used to make cars are now used to build androids, thus revitalizing the city's economy. The developers say that it's a game of expectation. The game uses a lot of Detroit iconography. Even though it's a futuristic take on the downtown area, it's still pretty recognizable as Woodward Avenue. The game even includes the downtown retail district, the monorail system, the monument to Joe Louis, and the Spirit of Detroit sculptures. The game even makes a nod to the Detroit urban farms and imagines what they could be in the future. The game isn't a one-to-one replica of the city by any means. It has its issues, most of the time for the sake of the story, but the game is filled with little nods and nudges to the real Detroit.
Number 4.
Grand Theft Auto 5. Los Santos is LA. There's no two ways about it. They didn't necessarily copy any specific buildings, it's just more like Los Santos is LA's fraternal twin. Both LA and Los Santos are low-rise cities with a 20th century design style and a huge suburban area, and instead of Hollywood Hills, you have Vinewood Hills, and so on. What makes this so spectacular is the scale in which GTA does this. Los Santos is huge, as you would expect from a game series that's become synonymous with the open world genre. You have small clusters of skyscrapers downtown, and even a south side that's a series of low rises, making it this game's version of Compton. The buildings are beautiful. However, because this is GTA, this is a satire on LA, and the game goes out of its way to give the real estate a kind of fake aesthetic, like you're inadvertently walked into the set of a Hollywood feature. Oh, I mean a Vinewood feature.
Number 3.
Batman Arkham City and Arkham Knight. Take Chicago, New York, and Detroit, mix them together, and what do you get? Gotham City. The buildings have a Gothic revival architecture design mixed with some postmodern, toss in some Art Deco because Batman, and throw in some futuristic type designs, and you have Gotham. Gotham in the games feels like a real city due to how big and detailed it is. Everything from the old run-down Gotham that's having a new Gotham built right on top of it, to iconic places you'd recognize from the comic book and the show like the Clock Tower, Crime Alley, Queen Industries, and Wayne Tower. The architecture tells a story even if the design is all over the place, which is true to form. The city plays backdrop to Batman's many adventures. If you want to tell a Gothic horror story, you have the Gothic buildings. You want to tell a story about a serial killer on the loose, you have the slums. And if you want to tell a story about futuristic tanks attacking people, you have the futuristic parts of the city. Gotham is huge, grand, and all over the place, but still it somehow remains familiar.
Number 2.
Spiderman. New York City. There's so much detail in this game. So much. It's not a one-to-one replica of New York, at least not the real one. This is Marvel's New York City, with a lot of the city's detail coming directly from the Marvel comics, such as Oscorp Building and Avengers Tower. However, there are smaller details. For months after the game's release, there were pictures online of people finding places in the game, but in real life. Washington Square looks beautiful, and so do the buildings surrounding it. Everything is closer together than the real New York, which allows Spider-Man to travel from one end of the map to the other in just 15 minutes. The buildings are highly detailed. The game leaves out a lot of real-world location, but the ones that it does utilize have a high level of painstaking detail. They even have the Statue of Liberty in the right place off the coast of southern Manhattan, and there's Governor's Island that's also really on point. The city is filled with details from the comics and the real city, and it's just magnificent to travel in and get lost.
Number 1.
Assassin's Creed Unity. How could it be anything but this? The game depicts an 18th century Paris. The artist that worked on the game even ensured that individual bricks were correctly placed. That's how you know you've made it in life. Some people want fame and fortune, but to me, to be able to care about something so much that you're willing to put that much painstaking detail in it, it's just a true sign that you made it in life. The design team used multiple historians to make sure that the game's depiction of Paris was as accurate as possible. Some of the details you probably wouldn't even notice, but one detail that didn't go unnoticed is the Notre Dame Cathedral. In April of 2019, after the cathedral caught fire, the 3D model from Assassin's Creed Unity was being considered for use in the rebuilding effort. Just imagine that for a second. The buildings in Assassin's Creed Unity have such a high level of detail that they could actually be used to help rebuild the real life thing. The game has an extremely high level of detail that saw master architects and historians build this city and bring it to life. The center of Paris is actually a one-to-one creation, but as you move from the center, the buildings start to get spread further apart. Landmarks are still roughly in the right place, but the extra room allows players to move around more freely. The city's detail is staggering, and that's why they're number 1. Hey, look at you. You made it to the end of the video. Why don't you give yourself a pat on the back? Thank you so much for watching it. It really helps us out. Please make sure that you liked and subscribe. We're continuing our quest to get 1,000 subscribers. We're so close. We need less than 25 subscribers at this point, and you can help us get there. Thank you.